Hello and welcome to this webinar, which is all about how you don't have to choose between D2C growth or B2B e-commerce growth. If you get your systems right, you can do both. My name's Chloe Thomas. I've been in e-commerce for over 20 years, and I'm here to get the best insights for you out of our guests. In this session, we're going to be talking to herbal pet care brand Dorwest about how they've scaled their D2C and B2B business with an overhauled tech stack. Also joining us, we have crucial partners in that tech stack overhaul, Kubix and b.solutions. So yes, we're about to get deep into what it takes to build tech stack that will enable you to manage growth across multiple channels, including lessons on tech stack selection, migration, and more. In a moment, we're going to meet our guests and learn how to do all that. But first, any questions you have now or that you think of during the session can be dropped under the Q&A tab that you will find on the right hand side of the screen. And even if we don't manage to cover them now, someone will get back to you with an answer very, very soon. Over on the right hand side of your screen, you will also find a lovely tab labeled Docs. That's where you can access Kubix tech that transforms smarter D2C and B2B strategies for growth. That's a lovely ebook you can download. We've also got b.solutions case study, all about how they helped Dorwest achieve what we're about to be talking about, and the Brightpearl by Sage product brochure. And you can download those at any point during this webinar and save them to have a look at later. And if you want to see for yourself how Brightpearl by Sage can help you to scale your D2C and B2B operations without the chaos, just like Dorwest has done, by automating everything from invoicing to order management to shipping, click on the Get My Demo button on the top right of your screen. Okay, it's time we get our experts up on stage. These brilliant people have done an amazing tech stack project, and they're going to be sharing their best advice with you all for the rest of this session. So panelists, please do come and join me on the stage. Where are you? Here we go. Marvelous. Brilliant. I'm very much looking forward to hearing about the project. But first, let's find out who you all are. Let's start with Joseph, Anthony. So, Joseph, tell us a bit about yourself and your role in the project.
Thanks, Chloe. I'm Joe. I'm the operations director here at Kubix. My role is to allow our clients to get the most out of Shopify and their surrounding tech stack. So in this project, I was involved from the initial scoping out of the solution. So looking at essentially the migration and then planning that through to essentially, how the business would get the most out of using Shopify. And I was a pretty constant throughout the project on all things technical.
Marvelous. And Ben?
Hi, I'm Ben. I'm operations director at Dorwest. I'm the customer in all this, I guess. Also kind of the project lead at Dorwest for the whole, anything computer based. So that's anything web and also the back office system. So I was really the person who drove this and led it for us at Dorwest.
Excellent. And Anthony?
Hi, Chloe. Anthony, and so managing director at b.solutions. We are a Brightpearl integration partner. We've been working with Brightpearl since 2013, and we support 400 plus clients through our integrations. We cover the full spectrum of integrations that a Brightpearl merchant might need, covering D2C, B2B commerce integrations, 3PL, accounting integrations, and a few more other areas. Yeah.
Brilliant. So before we get into what happened, Ben, I want to take you back to before, if you can or are willing to think back to those days. What shape was Dorwest in, and what were the challenges you were trying to deal with this project?
Okay, so we'd previously done a very similar project about 8 years ago, and I think what had happened before we started this project is we'd reached the limit of that capacity of that system, so it became unstable. It wasn't fit for the growth of our business. Obviously, as a pet business, we'd always encountered reasonably good growth, and that had, through the COVID era, really boosted us. But we'd maintained that moving forward. We just got to a stage where the ambitions of the business weren't being supported by our website or our back office system. So we kind of got to a point where every department was coming to me with an issue about the system. We had a system that was previously fit for purpose, but we outgrew it. It couldn't keep up. The integration side of it was poor. There was lots of things that were holding us back. So that was our main issue, really. It was just holding us back, I think.
Reached that point where everybody in the business was getting frustrated by it as well.
Everyone was at my door about it, yeah. So that was it.
So some personal aims with this as well as the purely business one. And was it more of a D2C sales problem or a B2B sales problem, or was it just the whole thing was just difficult?
There's different challenges for the D2C and B2B. So D2C, obviously, we want to kind of market to them directly very well. We want to encourage them to come to our website. And we were just getting issues where our website couldn't cope with that. And that wasn't just necessarily the website itself, but it was its integration with the back office that was causing that. And then there was lots of kind of chasing the problem around. And also for our B2B customers, we want to give them a better, more streamlined performance when they're on our website. We want them to place, their orders. They can be small orders, large orders, in the best way possible, and also give them kind of interoperability of the website to get access to information they need, whether that's marketing information or just general support from us. There was different challenges, but they were both could be traced back to the same issues, I think.
And it's a pretty big project to revamp your D2C website, and it's a pretty big project to revamp your B2B e-commerce front end, and it's a pretty big job to revamp your back end and all the integrations. What made you decide to do it all in one go? Because I can see there being pros and cons. I'm interested to know how you came to that decision.
Yeah, well, we initially didn't intend to do it all at once. Before we even kind of selected to Brightpearl and Kubix and Shopify, we wanted to improve our website. So naturally, we wanted our customers to have the best experience, and as consumers ourselves, we wanted the Shopify experience. So I did spend a reasonable amount of time exploring other options to keep the back office the way it was. And then very quickly, it became evident that wouldn't be a viable solution, or, I would put in as much effort, if not more, and I'd still have some of those issues. So for me, it was, I think it was a case of being brave, and you've got to sometimes just take the plunge. And our busiest season of the year is the autumn. So we do a calming product for fireworks. So that is our Christmas. If that doesn't work, that's a bad thing for us and our customers. So, and also we have like renewal periods as well. So it was kind of aligning all those things. It just kind of came to a point where I couldn't reasonably ignore it. I had to make that decision. And, obviously in my position, as a co-director with my wife, I'm in a fortunate or unfortunate position where I get to have the autonomy to make that decision. And my background in systems engineering told me that if you re-engineer the whole thing and do it right, it's far better than patching it, making one change that's going to lead to make, another change in the future, which may not be interoperable with another solution you've already decided on. So it made sense to do it as a one piece. At times, I wish we hadn't, because it was a lot of work. I'm not going to lie, it was a lot of work, and I worked really hard, and all my team did, and everyone we worked with worked really hard. So it was definitely worth it. It was a big project, and it was quite hard going, but we did it, and we weren't late. And I actually looked at the numbers, the kind of the time frame numbers in preparation for this, and actually from project sign off kickoff to go live was 90 something days, which was actually 65 working days. So I think if you do it over a longer period of time, you would have the same amount of pressure, but I think you'd lose that urgency. You'd lose that you've got to deliver, because the longer you have, the more people will be inclined to say, well, that'll bottom out, that'll sort out over time. But when you've got a fairly aggressive time frame, you have to deal with problems as they occur. You can't wait. And as a small to medium-sized business, and one that I'm very passionate about, there was no option. We just had to do it.
Yeah, there's a lot to be said for getting it done whilst you're all really focused on it rather than it being a side project the whole way. So thank you for sharing all of that, Ben, with us. Really appreciate it. Now, Joseph and Anthony, you've obviously been on this journey with Ben as well. But before we fully get into the journey itself, he was talking about how they came to this decision and the reasons they made these changes. Are those similar pain points you're hearing from clients? You know, is this a common scenario for when people come to you? I mean, Joseph, you're nodding, so I'll come to you first and then I'll come to Anthony for your perspective.
Yeah, I'd say it is. Usually there's something that sparks the change. That might be something like expanding internationally. It might be a new system that a business aspires to work with. But you tend to find that you're as good as your slowest piece of tech. And 9 times out of 10, that slowest piece of tech is, the instrumental piece of tech. So before you know it, no matter how you navigate around it, generally it comes to the conclusion of, we just need to rip the plaster off and make a big decision. And sometimes that decision is deferred. Sometimes you do smaller projects, try and patch it. But no, the circumstances that Ben explained there are really, really common.
And Anthony?
Yeah. So, we see a lot of merchants would actually try to tackle, several, sales channels, the D2C, B2B, marketplaces. Actually, as soon as you try selling on multiple channels, you're going to potentially be in a situation where you might be overselling. So that's a common, situation. As you try to adapt to multiple workflows, you're going to see a growing number of workarounds, manual tasks, and sometimes you see, merchants who have actually new channel opportunities, but because they know that their tech stack is at the limit, they are going to try to, they're going to avoid and not take, the opportunity and actually launch, the new channel. So that's where actually probably that's the right time to think about, obviously changing your tech stack and investing in a scalable, tech stack. Yeah.
So Ben, you made this decision you were going to do everything all at one time. Mm-hmm. And then, then you reach that beginning of the 90 days where everything went go. But between those 2 points, you have big decisions to make about which tech partners and which agency partners you were going to be going with. So what led you to choose Shopify Plus with Brightpearl with integration support from b.solutions?
Yeah, that was quite a large set of, obviously probably the biggest decision we made is choosing the right partners. And we used we have a consultant who works with us on our old ERP system as well. And actually they did a lot of the legwork before we spoke to people to understand what was available in the marketplace. He understood our business, what we wanted to achieve. And that was really important for me because obviously I can only do so much. And then really we started from the position that we wanted Shopify. What the customers want, what do we want our customers to do? We want them to be able to check out without finding their card. They want them to be able to passwordless. We want them to be secure. They want it to be scalable, flexible. So really then we kind of work backwards and, okay, what is the best ERP to work with that? And I think I'm not wrong in saying ERP-wise, Sage, Brightpearl is one of the only ones that's kind of approved or endorsed by Shopify. So that meant a lot to us, that we wouldn't be trying to fit together 2 pieces of technology that weren't designed to work together or couldn't work together. And then obviously, once we kind of made that decision, kind of the middleware, the integration with b.solutions, that became recommended as well. And we just wanted to find something that was going to be as harmonious as possible. And hopefully people who'd worked together or worked with those systems before. So it just made everything a lot more straightforward to work with. We weren't reinventing anything, and that was something I had to try and reassure my team, is that we're not trying to do anything that someone hasn't done before. There's always going to be nuances, but really we're going down a fairly well trodden path with pieces of technology which are fairly mature, very mature and widely accepted. So that made the decision easier for us. And so it was a big decision, and I think it was definitely the right decision, and never at any point did it feel like it wasn't. And then when it came to kind of choosing partners, in particularly obviously with the web side of it, it was people. People buy from people. We had 3 different agencies we were looking at. One was kind of a definite no immediately. One was kind of in the running against Kubix, and then it came down to the personalities we dealt with at Kubix and the way they presented their proposal, really. And I think there was one line right at the start of it, I think I said this to Joe before, that really kind of spoke to me, that as a business, our three big things are honesty, trust, and communication. We ask that of our team, we give it to our team. It's how we all work together. And that was in the opening paragraph of the Kubix proposal. So that kind of immediately said to me, that's the right team for us. Also, obviously we'd spoken to Joe a lot, and we kind of felt he wasn't trying to sell us hopes. It was there. I think often there can be the danger with websites and web technology that anything's possible if you want to develop it or if you want to have it customized. But Joe was very clear from the start, don't do custom. Get as close to what you want with a template or with a piece of tech, and then do the final bit, or have to compromise on things, and that was fine. And that's really what led us to that point. And then working with b.solutions was just really easy. It just fitted everything together.
That's what you want to hear, Anthony, isn't it? Working with b.solutions was really easy. Like words to anybody's ears. But I want to come to Joe first at this point. Ben was saying about how you pushed back on some of their plans. Is that something you find you're often doing with clients to help them find the right way? It's more of that kind of, I guess what I'm saying is not that you're having arguments, but you're having a two-way discussion to help people get to the right point.
Yes, definitely. So at the start of the project, we put together quite a robust scope. And I think it's fair to say whenever we put a scope together, it's often quite aspirational. So we'd always put a prioritization criteria in there to say, right, okay, this is a could have. We might not have that done for the launch. And it was in preparation for this discussion, I had a look at our TCO document, the total cost of ownership and the apps and the integrations. And that had changed quite a bit from what we initially planned out, even though it's a short project, to what we actually launched with. I think that's really just a testament to being quite nimble with the project and saying, look, okay, don't necessarily need that to go live here and now. And it's a similar from a development standpoint as well. I always say to clients and prospective clients, invest your development hours and development time where it really matters and where the business can actually feel the impactful value. And what that allows you to do as well, especially when we talk about Shopify themes and the architecture, it allows you to be nimble internally. It's not being developed, it's not bespoke, it's not something that needs necessarily documentation and training. You're playing into the strengths of the Shopify platform. And that's something that we're huge advocates for, because it allows us to do projects in a shorter period of time. And this project's a good example of that.
Excellent. And Anthony, do you find that two-way, not evaluation, but evolution of the brief is something you do, or in the world of integrations, is it far more cut and dried, what is and isn't going to work as you're building these out for people?
No, it's exactly, the same, I totally agree. I think there was a really strong, upfront design where we've had, long discussions about actually delivering specific features that were actually necessary to deliver these projects. Obviously, working with Ben and Joseph, that means that there was strong buy-in, from the different stakeholders, and that made actually the delivery, being really focused on the mission critical, features. And that's why, I think we were able to deliver these integrations with quite advanced, B2B capabilities in a short period of time. Yeah.
So let's talk about the build, the migration, those 90 days / 65 office days. Ben, how did you go about managing that migration process? Were there key stages, key steps? Were there advice you'd share, things you wish you'd done differently, toughest challenges? I'm going to just fire about 20 questions at you. Okay. Tell us about it.
Well, the first thing we did, and it's what we've done before with projects like this, is we basically set up an internal project team. So we're only 17 people end to end anyway. So we had basically the manager from each department, so customer services, marketing, production and dispatch, and then one person as well from each of their teams to be responsible for their area. And they weren't all in everything, from one better way of putting it. So marketing had little to do with Brightpearl, but were very involved with Shopify. and Kubix. Customer services were, almost entirely Shopify, but they also need to understand Brightpearl. So it was giving those people the responsibility to, they knew their areas of the business best. They knew what the system needed to do. Marketing knew what they wanted to achieve in terms of all those things we couldn't do at the moment because our website couldn't handle it, or the data wasn't there, or the integration. So really, I think that was one of the key things I think I would offer to people is you've got to have the right people involved. There's no good me sitting there saying I can do it all. I'm the only one with the tech experience. These people knew their job best, and I just gave oversight and was involved in every area. So that was the first thing we really did. And then the data was the biggest thing we had to deal with. We had a lot of data, obviously. And we had a third-party consultant who works with us on that, and they were invaluable as well. So with this project and with everything we do in the business, I'm very keen on having the right person for the right role, whether that's someone we have in-house or whether it's we buy in that resource from elsewhere. And that's how we select, come back to what we said earlier. That's why we ended up with Kubix, Brightpearl and b.solutions. So, and then it was just communication between us and every other partner, if you like. There was a lot of, it felt a lot to begin with when we had the initial project plan from Brightpearl, and I think one of the things our project manager said to us was, you've just got to trust the process. It's going to look daunting. You've got to trust the process. There was lots of initial setup calls. There was lots of initial training calls. And then, considering we did everything remote, it worked really well, and I think I would have been skeptical of that 5 years ago, that you could achieve what we achieved by never actually being sat in the same room as someone. It's very traditional. I think you've got to be together to do it. And that worked really well. And then it was just, understanding our limitations and communicating with people when things didn't work, we weren't happy with something. We had little blips along the way with probably each partner, that we had to have honest conversations with people and say, this isn't going to work, or this isn't working. We need some escalation. We need to get something changed. But again, that's kind of coupled in with the time frame. We didn't have time to wait and see. Obviously, we trust people if they said to us that'll work itself out. But you've got to raise things when they become evident and get an answer, really. So yeah, it was a lot of key stages that I kind of, maybe I've blacked some of it out of my memory of how it was. But for every hour of training that our team did on every different project, every part of the project, I mandated that they did 4 to 6 hours away from that to ensure that they knew how to do it. Because there's no good sitting in a training course on a call, even if they are recorded, and say, yeah, I know how to do it now. You got to do it and redo it and redo it. So like I said, we've done it before 9 years ago, and that worked for us then, and it worked for us this time as well, definitely. So
you did it all in 90 days. You had team members from all over the business involved in the project. You had clear guidelines of what was happening. Everyone, the external partners knew what they were doing, but you were just coming up to your peak selling season. So you weren't in peak, but that doesn't mean the team didn't have an awful lot of other things to be doing. So then you're making sure they properly learn the training by learning and then doing. How did you manage to keep the business as usual element continuing as usual, I suppose?
I think it was, everyone was bought in. So, we were asking a lot of our team, and, I think they'll all agree it was tough going, and we're very pleased when we did it. But because we were communicating what we were doing to everybody, not just the people on the project team, the whole business, 17 of us, knew what we were doing and why we were doing it. So there was understanding there from everyone. Oh, this manager's not available, or this is going on, the conference room is busy, we're doing this project, it will benefit us all ultimately. So everyone just kind of dug in and got on with their job and did what they could to help those other people. And actually, one of our managers kind of, he wasn't asked to do this. He made it his business to understand end to end how everything worked. He sat in on as much training as he could and just got into the test systems and just tried them. And it's not necessarily his area, but that's kind of the spirit we've got here. We all work together. We're a family business supporting 17 families. And that's what kind of got us through it. Everyone knew what the pressures that everyone else was under. We communicated well. We looked after people, and everyone wants the business to succeed. So they knew we had to do it. So that's what it was, really.
I love the way you explain that. So clear that the team, the culture, and setting those elements at the beginning of the process, picking the right partners, knowing what you're doing, and communicating it to the team. I think without those three things, there's no way you'd have managed it in 90 days.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, it comes back to the trust. You know, we were telling them what was going on so they could trust us. We were honest. If things weren't going to go right, they knew we would tell them. So there was no dark arts, there was no closed doors. So.
And Anthony, from your perspective, being part of this project as well, are there any other key things you'd like to pull out of the build and the migration process that you think really helped to bring us on those 90 days that maybe the people watching would not have assumed they needed to be ready for if they're going on this journey as well?
Obviously the level of commitment we would see obviously from Ben and his team, and obviously the detailed design discussions we've had with Joseph and the Kubix team, that really pushed us to actually add the very advanced B2B integration capabilities in our Shopify Advanced integration for Brightpearl. There was a lot of work put into that so that we can really take advantage of Shopify Advanced B2B capabilities. B2B buyers, they expect now a level of functionalities, with self-serve, personalized, payment methods, and so we've added a lot in the integration in terms of obviously company location, contact synchronization, with from Brightpearl to Shopify, in terms of catalog pricing sync, between Brightpearl and Shopify, order payment sync between Brightpearl and Shopify. We had obviously custom requirements, specifically for Dorwest, where we had to synchronize, product variants, for products, data residing in Brightpearl to one site, to the trade side, but not to the D2C site, including bundles. So that's custom requirements we've added to our integration, and that's been a very, very interesting process. And we've got now a connector which is actually meeting all these really advanced B2B capabilities offered by Shopify, and that's a moving picture, right? Shopify is going to keep adding. You've got self-service returns, being now available. So that's something that is going to evolve, and obviously we are going to keep adding functionalities in the connector. Yeah.
Excellent. And Joe, kind of the same question to you. Any other key things you'd like to pick out from that migration and build process that you think really helped succeed, or that other people should be aware they need to plan for?
I'd say the most impactful thing is to know what your non-negotiable things are. And Ben and the Dorwest team were really very bullish on all the things there that was mentioned with b.solutions about the sync, and that no, it absolutely had to sync this way, and it was going to be self-serve. Because when you're in a tight time period, it's quite easy for someone to go, right, we're going to put that in a phase 2, or no, it's all right, we're going to defer that. And there was absolutely none of that, which is why there is a reason to celebrate, because there's no such thing as kind of scraping by in 90 days and, we just about got live. What went live is actually, it's an innovative site that leans into the latest functionality from Shopify B2B. And arguably, we're really pushing Brightpearl to its limits in terms of how that data synchronizes across as well. So definitely know the non-negotiables and really why the project's happening. And similar to that, again, emphasize, because the timeframes is around the kind of silos that can exist in these kind of projects. So typically, again, in the agency world, you'll talk a lot about these phases and that's kind of owned by that person, and that's when we're going to get this partner involved. I mean, we was having the conversation with b.solutions from like week 2 of the project, really early on. So even dependencies in how the website looks and feels in the design phase is being influenced by what the capability of the integration has. So we're not kind of tripping up, 8-10 weeks in and realizing, that can't be done, or this can be done. So silos definitely a risk, and to kind of eliminate those where possible. And yeah, just know the non-negotiable parts that you absolutely don't want to go live without.
Yeah, it's so critical to know those, so you can remember when you're in the deep of it which bits actually really matter, and actually moving that button 2 inches to the left is not a non-negotiable. So let's leave that, because the insanity can come during these projects. Let's not dive into that though. Let's talk about after. I mean, Ben, clearly it's gone pretty well because you've agreed to be on this webinar and you're still clearly talking to Joe and Anthony. So I'm going to say this is a success, but what's been the impact? Because it's about 6 months or so since you've been live?
September last year we went live, so I think it's around 6 to 8 months. It's just the fluid nature of how the systems work together, and I think there is always a danger when you have multiple systems that aren't the same supplier. We had previously our system was one system, web to back end, and I think there's always a danger with any multiple system that you're going to get a problem that someone else blames someone else for. We've not had that, touch wood. We haven't really had any issues. It's just been the fluid nature of it. It's delivering what it promised to deliver and what we wanted it to deliver. So that is the biggest thing for us. Everyone works really well together. I think, we've got obviously got a good relationship with Joe and Kubix and Anthony and B.solutions, as well as Brightpearl. I very rarely actually speak to Brightpearl. I've no need to, because things are just ticking along really well. And then, for the web side of things, obviously that's the side that is always pushing forward. We can't afford for that to stay still. So we're always, talking to Joe about the next enhancement, the next app, the next little thing that we want to do. And, Anthony's and his team are really helpful for us understanding what we can do next. One of the next things we want to do is look at a bit more at data and how we can use that. So that's kind of the next step for us. But, we're actually warned by our digital marketing agency before we relaunched our website to expect a 40% drop in traffic post-launch. Just be prepared. Okay, so we kind of prepared. We were, waiting for the numbers to drop, put a bit of extra budget aside to improve that. Not the case. Our kind of traffic boosted by 25%. I'm not saying it can happen for everyone, but I think is that probably more testament to the quality of our website post-launch, the readability by Google, that the SEO clarity of it was just amazing, and we've just been able to do whatever we want to do with our website for our customers. We've been able to do, and that is ultimately what marketing have always asked me for. Customer services have a lot easier time because of the additional functionality in Brightpearl. The orders come down, they don't even get processed by a person anymore, they just appear in the warehouse on an iPad. You can't pick and pack the wrong product, it won't let you send it, it won't give you a postage label only if you scanned everything correctly. So there's just so many little things that we probably would have never had down as a deliverable that have just been, I won't say a happy accident, because they're not an accident, they're meant to work that way, but it's just made everyone's life a lot easier.
So better customer experience from the front end to the back end, more traffic coming through to the website, happier customer services team, greater flexibility in what you're doing across the channels. The big question though, Ben, I think is, are they still knocking on your door with problems every day? Because that was one of those big things from before. Are the team now happy?
No, they're not. And, they all understand the system as well, and they know how to. That's the other side of it, because they've all been so involved with it. I pass on those relationships ongoing to them to manage the support relationship, because that's really important. Because the more people who get involved in a support issue, of which there have been very few, the more it gets lost. The more it shouldn't have to come through me. It doesn't need to come through me. My team are professionals. They can articulate the answer. It also taught them to be better communicators, learn how to screenshot, learn how to reproduce things, record things. So they are much more self-serving, and I get called upon less for minor things. We have an internal Teams chat called system issues, and it was quite busy to begin with. People, there are always going to be little teething problems, very rare now. And if they do appear, it's like, oh, this happened, I did this, I fixed it, I spoke to this partner, no problem. So that's really good. It's kind of given us a much more technically mature business in terms of ownership of that as well. So I think there's always my background in systems engineering means that everyone always came to me as the most knowledgeable person in the business. but that's not sustainable. That's not a great idea when I'm away or I'm doing something else, and it slows things down. So
it sounds like it's very much kind of set the whole company up for growth in both the D2C and the B2B channels, because you're no longer the bottleneck for those smaller issues. So you must be able to focus more on the growth plans and the rest of the team as well.
Yeah, and there's also other sides of the business that we haven't really touched on this because it's not the kind of the website of it, but the kind of with Brightpearl especially, we now do manufacturing. We assemble our own products here from bulk down to saleable units. We had to do that all manually in terms of the system side of it, but now it's all automated, and that saves so much time. Multiple people can be trained how to do that, as opposed to one person who understands the paper process. So that's been really good as well. That's something else that became evident that was something we needed to do. So that's, again, Brightpearl's given us that flexibility to do it.
And Anthony, of course, integrations are never set in stone. What do you think is going to be coming up, or what is already planned for improving those integrations for Dorwest?
I mean, obviously we are going to continue evolving our Shopify Brightpearl advanced integration. Obviously we monitor really closely the Shopify roadmap, and they prepare new features all the time. So really we are trying to actually evolve and enhance this integration so that we can take care of merchants who actually want to benefit from this D2C, B2B, POS advanced functionalities with obviously Shopify Managed Market as well, the marketplace integrations that you can actually obviously deliver through Shopify. So our advanced integration will be able to actually handle all these different channels, and obviously bringing orders in Brightpearl with very granular, channel bifurcation, because you want to be able to obviously monitor your sales in Brightpearl with granular channels, so that you can have the proper reporting, you can have actually automations per channel, and that's what our integration allows merchants to do. And so we want to build on that, and obviously recently Shopify have released a new API to manage store transfers, replenishment for your store, for the stores, US stores. So we're already working on that, making sure that actually we'll be able to synchronize transfers from created in Brightpearl through inventory planner potentially, and so that they can be received in store using Shopify POS. So we are really busy delivering all these new functionalities for merchants.
Excellent. The potential of integrations never ceases to increase. And Joe, obviously a big part of this project was enabling Ben and the Dorwest team to be able to grow both their D2C and their B2B at the same time, not having to ignore one whilst they work on the other and so forth, getting it all done at that one time. And I'm sure there's a lot of brands listening who are in that space at the moment. They're thinking we've got to prioritize one or the other. Obviously, that's not necessary. What advice would you have for those watching who are trying to work out that problem at the moment?
There's quite a few learnings to take from this, particularly with the B2B side, because I mean, over the last few years, B2B e-commerce, there's been a lot of projects that we've been involved in, and honestly, it still shocks me to this day the amount of nuances that I come across. There's no rhyme or rhythm to everything from credit limits to registrations and approvals and certifications. So if I was kind of speaking to any merchant about it, I'd say just really iron out from the start the nuances of the B2B environment particularly, because I feel like this, in the e-commerce sphere, unified commerce is a term that gets kind of bound around a lot. And I feel like it's a bit of a misnomer with B2B, because again, without getting too technical, the big decision tree within Shopify is whether you do a blended store or a dedicated store for B2B. Dorwest has a dedicated B2B store, so it's not actually in the same environment as the D2C, which unlocks a lot of benefits. It means we can have particular integration flows. It means all the integration reporting is done in a separate place, permissions, etc. So there are pros and cons to each. So I'd say that's a really key thing to think about and prioritize. And also just when we're looking at B2B, it all comes down to the integrations as well. And trust me, they can't spend enough time testing the integrations. We're in a really blessed position with this project because there's not a lot b.solutions can't do, but there are still the majority of merchants we work with are working with out-the-box connectors. And I will kind of almost get flippant comments of, oh, yeah, it integrates with Shopify. Yeah, it integrates with Shopify. I'm like, well, does it integrate with Shopify catalogs? Does it integrate with your meta fields? How is the integration working? Is it syncing it on periodically? So that's where I've seen this fall down and maybe one get prioritized over another because the integrations typically are set up more to cater to D2C. And B2B, there's very few providers out there that can fully natively support Shopify companies, catalogs, payment terms. This is one of those projects where it has ticked every single box of those default fields on Shopify, which is why Ben and the team are so enabled. There's no workarounds, there's no flicking in between different platforms. I mean, a really good example is you set up a company in Brightpearl within the Dorwest environment, immediately there is a corresponding customer account created in Shopify. It's already linked, customers get an invite email straight away. It's just seamless. Whereas in a lot of the B2B environments that we assess, there's an awful lot of copying and pasting, or it's so-and-so's job to do that after it's gone to that system. That's what you want to avoid, and that's where you get the value out of these systems when you eliminate those manual processes.
Yes, let's try and eliminate copy and pasting, everybody, please. Ben, you mentioned looking to the future now. You mentioned that data is a big project in the near future for you. You can either elaborate on that or let us in on a few other things you've got planned, but I don't want you to feel like you've got to share all your secrets. So I leave it to you.
I think the next thing is data and reporting. As I said before, I think we want, although we do have reporting, we have reporting from Brightpearl and from Shopify. I think we want to have access to raw data and use our third-party consultant to help us build those dashboards for us and help us really understand more about it. So that's kind of one side of it for kind of the analytics side. But then really the other side of it is kind of continuing to push the website and the functionality that we can get from that. I don't think we've stopped really since we went live. I think we've continued, there's always discussions going with Joe and his team about, the next thing we can do. And I think there's no complacency. We have the best platform we can ask for. So we've got to keep leveraging that. And, we've had other internal projects run since, so that we've changed our email marketing system, which has really been seamless in its integration with Shopify. But yeah, that's kind of the two main things really, is just to, enable us to continue to get the most from the platforms we have.
I love that answer. The focus on how we can keep improving, not oh, I've always wanted to do this project, but actually this is what's going to make the difference, and we're seeing the results. We're working through it also. So thank you so much for that, Ben. Okay, guys, last question for you all. We've covered a whole journey of the Dorwest migration, from it being a teeny tiny idea right the way through to Ben's future plans. So what would be your final piece of advice to merchants looking to follow in Ben's footsteps, I suppose, looking to expand, to change business models, so to add B2B e-commerce, maybe to add D2C, and how to go about upgrading their tech stacks? Ben, I think I'll come to you first, if that's okay, and then I'll come to Anthony, and then I'll finish with Joe.
I think for us, or for me personally, is you've got to have the bravery to make that difficult decision to start a difficult project. Would I have chosen to do it in 90 days? Maybe not, but I'm glad that we did. And the time we spent before we kind of did the kickoff with, selecting the right systems, that is where you can't spend enough time. I don't think you've got to give that the right amount of attention, because that will make the kind of the project itself easier. So, don't obsess about taking a year to do the integration testing and all that. I think it's got to be the right amount of time, but spend as much as you can on getting the right system, because that will ultimately make the delivery and everything else a lot easier.
Excellent. Anthony?
I guess obviously selecting the right software, but also selecting the right partner. Obviously, there's a lot of different technologies. It's a constant moving picture, and all these design discussions we've had, and we've taken the time to have these discussions, in the detail, and that has allowed the definition of a strong design with 2B workflows, documented and agreed with a strong buy-in, and obviously, to deliver a project in a short period of time like this, you need to have a strong planning, delivery planning, and prioritization, and that's key for this type of project, and that's why we've been able, as a team here, to actually deliver a successful project. I think that's the key aspects. Yeah.
Lovely. And finally, Joe.
I definitely kind of attest to the good project management part. I mean, it's kind of forced when we're looking at this type of timeline, but as Ben mentioned, that upfront diligence around the tech stack. I mean, I kind of prepared some visuals just to make sure we wasn't missing anything on the integration flows. You can't spend enough time doing that. I'd say if it was kind of starting a project like this, almost, I heard this term like not a post-mortem, but a pre-mortem. Where can it go wrong? And we've mentioned it a few times around the data. Something I've noticed with migration projects is it's very easy to get carried away in design. This project didn't get carried away, but there was a lot of aspirational things added in the design, which was great. The designs got approved, they look brilliant. But then it was right, okay, where does that data actually exist? Where are we getting it from? And before you know it, if you're designing something, I don't know about this particular project, but another project will look like nutritional tables, feeding guides, that kind of thing. Does that data exist in an easy way to migrate into Shopify? And if it doesn't, is it essential? So one thing we've started to do is kind of mark up and annotate the designs as to what format is that data in, and doing a data map. So again, it's not a particularly thrilling task, but that really limits the risk, even down onto the marketing and SEO side as well. So that would be my piece of advice. And anyone that's going to work with me will know I'll talk a lot about integrations and kind of the robustness of those, and I'll echo that sentiment again. Yes, and don't kind of limit the outcome for the project for the sake of time, as Ben mentioned, and as Anthony have as well, about the kind of quality of the integration on the B2B side. That was a key thing for this project to be successful. It wasn't compromised on despite the deadline. So just know what success looks like, and you can't go far wrong.
Brilliant. Thank you, Joe, Anthony and Ben, for sharing this fascinating project and all the lessons you've learned and advice you've got from it with all our audience. Thank you all for joining us today. Now, the whole point of this masterclass is to help you. So before you log off, make sure you've grabbed those docs even. See, I'm thinking about Dorwest too much. Those docs on the right-hand side of your screen. You have Kubix's Tech That Transforms ebook, which has got more information about this project. And if you were really interested in Joe's point about should you bake your B2B e-commerce in with your D2C or have them separately, you really need to read that ebook because that goes into more detail on that and lots of other things too. b.solutions case study all about how they help Dorwest achieve what we've been talking about is in there as well, and the Brightpearl by Sage product brochure. So go and grab those 3 downloads now. They're in the docs area. And if you want to see for yourself how Brightpearl by Sage could help you scale your D2C and B2B operations without any chaos, just like it's done for Dorwest, and so you can automate everything from invoicing to order management to shipping, click on the Get My Demo button on the top right of the screen and you get that booked in. You will shortly receive the post-event email that's got more resources, yes, more, to help you get your house in order for a better 2025 and beyond. And within that, there will also be details of how to catch this session again on demand. Because as Ben was saying, these projects aren't for one person or one department, they're for everybody. So please do share that replay, that on demand, with other members of your team who you think would find it useful. Thanks everybody for watching.